What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats in our Movement Play of the Week, this week for week one of the 2025 National Football League season. And yes, that's right, we are back. We are back for another season here at our Movement Plays of the Week, where we dive into the most expressive, the most skillful, the most tuned and adaptable movement skill on a National Football League Sunday. And you're going to find out a little bit more about what that means to me and what that should mean to all of us who view American football through this lens if you come along for the ride in this 2025 National Football League season, when we are going to embrace and embody the idea and the theme of Wuxin, this idea of no-mindedness, where a player's frame of mind can, could, or maybe should be when they interact with the emergent, dynamic, and complex movement problems that they're going to face on a National Football League Sunday. It probably comes as no shock or surprise that the game we're going to feature today is the Baltimore Ravens Buffalo Bills, the premier matchup of week one in the 2025 National Football League season here on Sunday Night Football. But instead of looking at our two-time mover of the year, Lamar Jackson, as we probably could, or his counterpart, Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP and our all movement second team member, we're going to look at Josh Allen's running back, James Cook. We're going to let him cook here and see what he had to do on Sunday night that allows us to really lean in here on this idea of Wuxin, where one would take their mind away, no attachment to the outcome, and just letting their movement skill be expressed in letting things be. No attachment, a less attachment rather, to what's going to unfold. Now, the way the constraints coalesce here at this moment in time, and that's something I want you to pay close attention to. Look down at the bottom of your screen or the bottom of the video here. We're going to see that these constraints coalescing, the organism, James Cook, running back, Buffalo Bills, and we think about his form of life and how he moves on an NFL field. We think about the environment, Buffalo, New York, Sunday Night Football, pressure, anxiety, and the like. Things that, on the brightest of lights, what that sets the tone for. Then we look at the task. We look at aspects of the task, not just receiving the ball out of the backfield on this hot route on 3rd and 6 from his quarterback. But we look down at the bottom of the screen, seeing that there's 14 minutes left in the game and the Bills are behind by 15 points. And I just want you to kind of think about this. If you didn't see the way the game played out, I want to remind you that the Buffalo Bills ended up winning this game 41-40. So we think about how many points were scored after this James Cook play. But this play, a vital and integral one, 3rd and 6 on the Buffalo Bills' own 47-yard line here. If they don't pick up this 3rd down, who knows what would have happened? And if James Cook didn't do what James Cook is about to do, also who knows what's about to happen. So let's look at it as we typically do, full speed, a couple times through here. We see the hot route here by Josh Allen's getting it over to James Cook, his running back, and he gets out in the open field, gets loose, and does what James Cook does, and really what the most dynamic players at his position do. Very similar to his brother Dalvin Cook, who played in Minnesota here for a long time. You can see him when he has a ball in his hands in the open field. You can see why this might be our movement play of the week, or why this is the movement play of the week, rather. One more time through here at 100% speed, and then we'll look at it in the way that we will be able to peel it apart, piece by piece, local movement problem by local movement problem, layer by layer, and try to get into James Cook's human movement system on this respective play. So let's look slow motion now when we see this unfold. Let me go back here because there are a number of local movement problems that sort of feed into one another. 3 slices or snippets of the game, if you will, that I want to investigate. And then as coaching practitioners, movement skill aficionados, if you will, trying to investigate what it is that we might be able to do to help facilitate this type of skillful expression. what information James Cook might be attuned to, meaning the information that he's picking up perceptually that is going to guide how he might be able to adapt. And then when we look at how he's actually allowing his intentions or where his mind might be or where his mind might go, and how he might be able to release some attachment to the outcome or to certain ways. These are all things I want you to think about here. And again, really lean in on. So we look at this first local movement problem. Again, 3rd and 6, Josh Allen on the hot route. We're going to pick up where Josh Allen lets off. Okay. We see this slice, and I don't want to underestimate anything that James Cook is doing here throughout, because I want you to think about really how complex this movement problem really will be. Now, granted, he knows at this moment in time in this really 2v1 situation to pick up the first down. Again, credit to Josh Allen here. It probably isn't as far as what Chris Collinsworth said on the broadcast. And there's a reason why I mute NFL commentators, but when I listened to this back through, and Chris Collinsworth was like, this is all Josh Allen. Well, Josh Allen audibling and getting the ball to James Cook was all Josh Allen. But here, what's about to happen over the next 50 yards after James Cook receives the ball is all James Cook. I want you to, again, let's lean back into some of these ideas, right? We look where he might be looking and what he might be picking up, right? We want to speculate here. We're going to hypothesize, but we can hypothesize in a highly educated way based on what we see unfold. One of the things that I really love about James Cook's movement style is he's extraordinarily patient. He's not that quick to hit the gas pedal until he is decisive around acting. Even in this situation where there's tremendous urgency, 3rd and 6, right? Like he doesn't want to waste time. He can't get behind the sticks here. And we can see where, if I just start getting back to my telestrator here, I don't really have to draw it because NBC already did that for me. But we see where the sticks are. And we understand here that there's a number of information sources that are going to be pertinent to James Cook, namely behavior towards behavior. How other people are behaving or acting on a football field is going to inform one's own opportunities to act, aka their affordances, right? And we think about the really very apparent and obvious information sources here. In this situation, James Cook in a 2v1, him and his teammate versus one defender to pick up the first down. Now, granted, he's got Roquan Smith, who's an all-pro all movement team member coming from behind, and he's going to be very relevant very quickly. So it's quickly going to turn from a 2v1 to a 2v2, right? Hopefully that makes some sense. But at this moment, James Cook can sort of take his mind off and just focus on the what is that is what right here. Okay. So as you see that, let's clear that. Let's get back to our mouse. But I want you to look at how James Cook is acting. Too many coaches are quick to tell a player to be quick on the gas pedal, to have this sense of urgency. But I want you to look at James Cook's next movement actions, his next steps. Look at how he actually gathers himself there. Let's not miss the forest through the trees. Remember, it's like a finger pointing the way to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger, but instead focus on what the finger is pointing at and all that greater heavenly glory, right? Bruce Lee, my guy, right? Look at him here. Most people would think, got to pick up the first down, get the first down only. But one thing that is cool about James Cook in sort of a Le'Veon Bell type of fashion, patience. The patience here to draw opponents in and to you that actually affords subsequent opportunities to act. In his ability to coil and load it and actually take in this information, you're going to see me pointing out a whole bunch of things. What is he taking in now? It's not just Shakir, and it's not just the defender. Shakir being number 10 here, his own teammate. And we can see Roquan Smith really didn't come that far in that type of time frame, right? But look at the positioning, look at the way James Cook is acting here in order to take in the information around the what is, around what this guy's doing, how he's acting, how he has the ability to act. Don't miss the forest through the trees, okay? So now, granted, that allows him to contort his body ever so slightly as he draws the defender in. Cool stuff there, to just skate on by. Oftentimes, guys are too fast on the gas pedal here. So if he was thinking too much about what his coaches might expect him to do, he might attack this angle, if you look at my mouse, and run straight in Oklahoma drill style to this Ravens defender. I just started pointing at the screen as if you guys were going to be able to see where I was pointing, right? So this Ravens defender, this sort of Oklahoma drill of coming into one another, if he were to act too quickly, that would be easy to happen. And then, especially as we see it here in this interpersonal distance, this metastable region of 3-ish yards, if he would be too fast to get into this region and distance, it's highly likely that either this guy where I'm circling on the screen or this guy here brings him down. And you can see where that would be in relation to the sticks. Again, don't miss the forest through the trees. But instead, James Cook states on by. Now, that's the first local movement problem. Let's remember context conditioned coupling variability. How I act in one movement problem is going to perpetually feed into how I will act in subsequent movement problems because it sets the tone for what continues to unfold. There will be simultaneous and then successive local movement problems, right? Now we see Roquan Smith, again, all pro, trying to bring him down, knowing that he's beyond the sticks here. And James Cook, in kind of a delve and cook type of fashion, always with this hand as a stiff arm, not to deflect necessarily, but often as a feeler. Where is that guy? How do I need to act adaptively? How can I flow Bruce Lee type of fashion, be water, my friend, and just drag him on along him to keep him, not to just push him off, but to keep him at bay if you look at how I'm acting there. And you can see it corresponds to what James Cook is doing. Roquan Smith coming in a little high, just trying to grab an arm and a shoulder to then drag down. It doesn't work that easy, even though James Cook is not a big cat. James Cook keeps that arm out and away, and we're going to talk a little bit more when we get to the end of the video as to what we might be able to do as coaching practitioners to help facilitate this type of movement behavior in and with the players we work with. But I digress. Look at where James Cook's eyes are. Did he look back at Roquan Smith? He did momentarily, right? He sees him right there. Got to get the feeler out. He probably feels them as well, has that haptic and kinesthetic sense and touch. But he looks back momentarily, head is back up and out. Okay? Key information for us to take in because he knows there's going to be some things that happen. Look at it. You see it? Okay? As he pushes Roquan Smith away, what comes next is most important. You see it? Hopefully you do. The next what is local movement problem by local movement problem. If he was up in his feelings, up in his thoughts, he's likely to probably deal too much with that, which what Roquan Smith is doing. Let's erase that so we can see this play out. Now we see it again. Look at the head scan. Let's not miss the forest through the trees. You guys, if you've been here before, you know how big I am on perception when it gets more skillful, being wider, deeper, longer, and more detailed, okay? Richer, more meaningful, right? But you got to be on that constant search for information. Let's look at James Cook. Boom, head turns quick. Don't miss it. See it? Okay, let's see it again. Okay, head turn. And you see it. It's on a swivel. It's on a swivel. Okay, all of that is important. Shoot, I just caught the pause of it, right? Again, it's my first day back. for my first day back at the office here, at least at Football Beyond the Stats and our movement plays of the week, right? Look at where his head is turned. He's running upfield, guys and gals, but look at where his head is. Okay? Does that make some sense? Hopefully it does. You can typically see. Now we don't have eye tracking glasses on him, right? But we can see based on the color of the stripe, as I always say, we see this vista that he likely is taking a glance in and gathering. Now, I always say to my offensive skill players, we're going to try to search and explore for that information really wide until it has to get more resolute, until it has to get finer, right? So we can see him out on this scan. And I love this from him, and it's probably the reason, or at least one of the main reasons, as to why I selected it as our movement play of the week. Head turns from left to right. If you try to get all the information, you're likely to miss most of it, or at least the most pertinent information. But James Cook is on an intentional search so he can remain open and responsive. When I say intentional search, he doesn't necessarily know what he's looking for. I don't believe. At least explicitly, he wouldn't be able to articulate to you right now, this is what I'm looking for. He might not even know that he's doing this. Okay? It might be implicitly happening. In fact, when a player, in my mind, is in this Wuxin state of no mindedness, no attachment to what's unfolding. Now, let's not get it twisted here. I'm going to call out the elephant in the room. Look at the space. I mean, there's a lot of space to be had here once he got rid of both of those first two movement problems. That first 2v1, then Roquan Smith, problem one and problem two. Now we got a big local movement problem to deal with that's going to unfold. Problem solution dynamics, changing states of organization, but look at him on his search. Look at him on his search. Okay. This will be pertinent when we see it from the other view. People will think to themselves, especially because you don't see any defenders until right now, right? But let's look at how the disposition of the problem, the complexion of the problem, pretty complex problem, mind you. Let's count the opponents and teammates, right? We got a chaser here in 24. We got a teammate here. We got Jair Alexander, who got to be made look like a fool a few times on this game. We got Wiggins, who ends up bringing him down later. We got all-world, all-mover Kyle Hamilton here. And then we have a bunch of Buffalo Bills in blue, right? He's not so concerned about the Buffalo Bills right now because it's really about the guys in white and the way that he uses and exploits space. Look at this right here. He runs right to, in this directional path, towards Jair Alexander, or at least like he's going to run past and through this gap. At first glance, when I saw it unfolding, I thought he could have or should have gone here. But James Cook, as we're about to find out in the other view, would have realized that Wiggins and Hamilton are entering that space. I didn't see that when it happened live. I didn't see it until we watched back through the other view. So he masterfully, he being Cook, masterfully and skillfully goes to this space right here to do what? Skillfully, masterfully. Pull Jair Alexander into the traffic, right? Knowing full well that Cook is going to go this way. You guys can see it unfold, right? Again, this is what we do here at Football Beyond the Stats, why we do it at this detail, because a lot of times people miss this. Now, look at how he drew him in. This is a complex movement problem. Essentially, this slice becomes a 4v1 in favor of the Baltimore Ravens. But James Cook knows, notice I put that in quotations, air quotes there. He knows, or at least he feels, he's with zero attachment, what is going to unfold. And then sharply cuts from left to right, right to left, off of this crossover. Should we see it again? Pulls him in and then crosses over. No chance for Jair Alexander, as we see there. Let's not miss that. That's masterful art by James Cook. Bam. Okay. Really good stuff. especially at that interpersonal distance. What information could he be picking up at this moment in time? Look where Cook's eyes are. He's not even taking in at this moment. He's selling in a deceptive fashion. Listen, Jair Alexander, I'm coming into this space. Jair Alexander is fixed and frozen. He's on a string right now for James Cook because he knows behind him there is nothing but green grass. But he so urgently wants to come here because he doesn't know if his guys are going to be able to fill that space. And ultimately, they don't, right? Again, I'm making a lot out of this because there's a lot to this. And then information that James Cook could pick up, he looks right back at him, zeroes in like the freaking Terminator, sees the way that Jair Alexander's body position is right here, right now, and knows he's not going here. Instead, he's going back towards the sideline, back towards the numbers, back behind Jair Alexander in his right hip right here because he sees the information and he acts in a decisive fashion at that moment. Layers upon layers, skillful stuff. There's levels to this game, guys and gals, and James Cook is doing it at a high, high level. And then he just skirts on by, adapts his foot. Don't miss those things. Don't miss those things because it shows the true artistry of what James Cook did on this play. Now, it's him and pay dirt. We know that he comes up a little short, but look at that head is on a swivel. He's scanning. It's a 2v3 now at this slice. Yes, Nate Wiggins comes back into the mix and does just enough to bring him down. But super skillful, highly dexterous stuff from James Cook, feature running back of the Buffalo Bills. Let's see it from this perspective because this one we're going to be able to get a little different view, and this vantage point brings us what we need. We see obviously the audible and Josh Allen hot route here to James Cook, letting him know, listen, this is coming to you and coming to you quick, especially with Kyle Van Noy coming off hot, off the edge unblocked. We see it here, okay? Let's look at it. We always, as a movement skill aficionado, are going to try to take it in from as many angles as we can at as many different speeds as we can to try to see the force through the trees. Okay. We see it again in these slices, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we see that head on a swivel, eyes taking in the information. We see exactly what unfolded there, and that's the sign and sight that I was talking about at this moment. See it right here? Like most guys here, guys and gals, let's not get it twisted. Even some of the most skillful backs in the league, if they're going this way, they're going to be typically looking that way, especially when threats are coming into that space also. Not James Cook and not the most skillful, dexterous movers in the National Football League. They know that threats are everywhere. And not only are threats everywhere, but the what is and what we can figure out about what we might need to do as a mover exists out there. So at this moment, especially in open space, we got to be on that search for information. Okay. This was the site that I was talking about, right? At first glance, when I saw it live, I was thinking to myself, why is he about to go east and west? And why isn't he exploiting? I wanted to point it this way. Why isn't he going here? Because I couldn't see what James Cook was seeing, right? But in this vantage point, in this viewpoint, we can see it pretty clearly, right? He's playing chess while others are playing checkers. Goes right at that angle, continues the search, continues to get that update. What's there? Moves his head from left to right, right to left, gathers it, looks long enough to get the information he needs, and then moves on, knowing full well this is that which what really matters at this moment, and we see it play out into that crossover at that interpersonal distance. Really cool stuff, obviously, as y'all can tell, right? Let's see it one more vantage point, and then I'll take us back to the start to talk about what we might be able to do. This angle is pretty cool because now I said we didn't have eye tracking glasses on James Cook, but we can see where his eyes are going. We can see what he's on that informational search for. We can see or at least speculate what he might be attuned to and how he's adapting his actions from it. Okay. Let's go back here. A couple things I want to mention. Obviously, anytime we look at a movement play of the week, we think to ourselves, what can we do as coaching practitioners, as skill acquisition specialists to set up a learning environment that looks, feels, acts, and unfolds similar to this with slices of the game presenting these types of movement problems to players, right? Here we see it from James Cook in this 2v1. We do this all the time in our learning environment. Let me set the tone a little bit for you. Okay. We'll go just like this. Okay. You see my red line there, and maybe we'll go all the way down to the sideline. We probably will. So you can see me drawing that to the sideline. Typically hash to sideline with anywhere from a 10 to 15 yard tunnel. Okay. So 10 to 15 by 10 to 15, depending on what exactly we want to work on. Okay. And we will set up either a 2v1 in favor of the offense or a 2v2. We do this a lot where it's even numbers, okay, with a chaser from behind. So it's not all that shocking. Now, I don't work with James Cook, but it's not that all shocking to see this type of thing play out. We will position this interaction in different places. Sometimes they will already be engaged with one another. Sometimes they will be coming into one another, and this defender is trying to get past left or right this offensive blocker. This player will get the ball, this player being right here, James Cook, or that running back, wide receiver, tight end, is going to get the ball in any number of ways. Maybe it could be on a reception, as James Cook did here. Maybe he could just be turning into the space. Maybe he would already have the ball in his hands, head up. And then we will have this defender as well. So a 2v2, 2v2, we do that quite often with changing workspace. Okay. Do that a lot. 1v2, 2v2, 2v1. Do it all different ways there. Okay. Easy slice that we could set up in Indy if you were an NFL position coach. Can set it up. We talk a lot about it in the book, Enhancing Skill in American Football. There's my cheap product plug of the day. We talk a lot about this type of 2v1, 2v2, or 1v2. Okay. That's one local movement problem we can set up. We can rep that out in repetition without repetition fashion. Okay. At this moment, we can also set this up. Okay. We would actually exclude this dude and we would keep these two individuals in the mix. Okay. Roquan Smith, James Cook, or running back and a linebacker, defensive back and a running back, tight end, wide receiver. You guys get the deal, right? Where they might be starting in a close interaction, chaser right from behind. And this guy, the James Cook player, okay, the skill player, will need to be looking downfield at the same time, okay? Or we can take that interaction, if I can clear that, and go another step here, boom, okay? We will actually start movement problems like this, where a defender already is attached in some way, shape, or form to the offensive player. And the offensive player has to shed him. Yes, they don't have pads on. They might have helmets on, but they likely don't have pads on. And what we're doing there is sparring and sparring speed. Okay. Just like mixed martial arts type of fashion, we will start with that player attached. So the offensive player has to shed the defender. Okay. We will do that and we'll shed them in any number of ways. Physicality ramps up a little bit. We talk a little bit about this in the book also. Go pick up the book if you haven't yet. We talk a lot about these types of physical interactions and how we might be able to simulate it. Biggest thing for our offensive skill players is not to get so fixated and focused on this immediate threat, on what that guy is doing, that we lose sight, if you were an offensive player, on what matters next. Because we have this full anticipation that that haptic and perceptual information that we're picking up about this defender behind us isn't the only information that's pertinent. Oftentimes, with where this sight line, this visual gaze is, there are players closer, okay? Usually 5 to 7 yards in this situation, not like it would be here where they're 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, and there's a bunch of open space. But nonetheless, you got to go interact with the what is. And we will set up that type of movement problem also. Local movement problem by local movement problem, successive movement problems. Finally, at this moment, players in space, wide open space. Now, I will admit we do this a lot more for our wide receivers or our returners who are typically going to find themselves in these situations. But we want our running backs to become attuned and adaptable under these situations. Also, I will admit we do this a little less, but we still do it. Open space with chasers from converging angles. Okay. What do I mean by that when I say that? And again, we talk about this in the book, converging angle defenders with typically, if I can draw it here, bear with me. We will usually do it in like, we do it a lot in the hashes, to be honest with you, in the high school or college hashes. Not so much in this hashes, okay? But we would do it. Let me draw another line if I could. Probably in like the numbers type of fashion, numbers to hash or numbers to numbers. Okay, does that make sense? So various workspace size. Remember, dexterity is the ability to solve any emerging movement problem across situations. What do I mean when I say situations? Varying workspace size, varying opponent position and conditions. Okay. Usually we do a 1v2, two defenders converging. Okay. This one guy, this offensive player, has to make him miss in varying width of space in usually 10 to 15, maybe up to 20 yards of depth. Okay. So from goal line, or excuse me, 20 to goal line. So just within the red zone here. So these type of alive movement problems are those that we can set up to draw out certain movement solutions from players by giving them exposure to these types of slices or snippets of the game. And then in a repetition without repetition fashion, we will repeat the process of solving these types of movement problems again and again to allow the player to continue to make adjustments to the information they're perceiving, how they're intending to act, the decisions that they might make, and the ways that they're adjusting their movement strategies and their movement actions to meet the needs of these types of movement problems across these very situations, these exact situations. Hopefully that makes some sense for you all. I obviously enjoyed this play a lot, getting into the nuances, getting into the weeds, and really looking into what James Cook did here. Guys and gals, this is going to be a fun season, just like every other season has been here at Football Beyond the Stats. Our movement play of the week, week one, the 2025 National Football League season. I hope you will come along for the ride. I'm Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi. I will see you guys in week two. Don't forget to hit subscribe, share this, like it. You know the drill. And yeah, I use that dreaded D word there. You guys know what to do. And I'll talk to you all on the flip side.